Democrats have fallen over the last 72 hours into one of three buckets. The one bucket, which is usually like the people who have absolutely no electoral danger in and of themselves, they're like, we're riding with Biden. Then you've got an equal-sized bucket of people like Michael Bennet, senator of Colorado, who took to the airwaves on CNN last night saying, he's not our best stuff. Then the rest of them...
This is the funniest bucket.
The rest of them... fall into what Nancy Pelosi articulated yesterday.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision.
She's like, well, we'd like him to make a decision. Did they miss the letter that was sent to her office?
Yeah.
Did they miss the full interview that he said? Or like the constant communication out of the campaign? Apparently he's making a lot of phone calls to Capitol Hill saying, I'm not going anywhere. And their response is, well, he's just going to have to make a decision.
He's going to stay in. He's going to lose to Trump. And then you're going to see some real Democrat fighting. You're going to see them go at each other's throats like you've never seen before.
It is no secret to those of us who've been around that the Obama team and the Biden team aren't particularly fond of one another.
If they want him out, they have to come out and say it. They can't be passive.
They got to
aggressive
drag
about
his
it.
old ass out.
It's this Democrat hubris that when I'm the only person who gets to make this decision, you can't force me out.
There's been an elaborate cover-up for years on all of this.
They only became concerned when the rest of us were let in on their little secret.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to a high-energy performance here, the Ruthless Variety Program. My name is Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, John Ashbrook, and Matt McDaniel joining us here today on set. Fellas, I'm not sure how we could be having any more fun, but if we can, we will endeavor to do that here today.
Yeah, I mean, this really is the gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving and giving. This, like, endless Dem civil war. You'll have George Clooney writing an op-ed being like, Joe Biden, drop out. You look like a corpse at the fundraiser.
You thought it was going to be our Christmas, but it's turned into like our Hanukkah, and it's like going to turn into our Ramadan next as it keeps going.
Our Ramadan.
Get a whole month out of it.
That's great. One way to put it, for sure. Listen, we're going to get to a whole bunch of different stuff here, and we're excited with our announcements for next week. This will be our last show until we are live in Milwaukee, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to open with a clip to just level set a little bit about where we are here in our political discussion. Let's play clip one, Spaghettis.
You all on the same page?
No.
What do you mean you're not on the same page?
You're not even in the same book.
So that's Old Man River, Democrat congressman. They had a big sort of beginning of the week. Recall, Congress was out for 2 weeks over the 4th of July. And so earlier this week, they had an opportunity to sit amongst themselves and discuss what had befallen the Democratic Party and, more importantly, the Democratic nominee, President Joe Biden. And they did this big internal meeting where they, like, took the phones. They're like, hey, let's make sure this thing's way off so we can speak candidly.
Yeah, because they've had such an issue with everything leaking, like, live in real time during their, like, secret "are we putting Uncle Joe to bed" meetings. And so this one, they said, like, we're confiscating all the phones, you know, this has to stay just between us. Walking out the door, the dude's like, meeting sucked ass, we're all screwed,
we're not even in the same book,
it's over.
No,
like, we need someone younger, says the bald dude with the cane.
It's so true, but it's a good way to set because Democrats are back in Washington, D.C., and nothing's gotten better for them. In fact, they're making it worse. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's got NATO summit going on. He's just sort of shuffling from one thing to the next. They've locked down all of Washington, D.C., which is a real pleasure for us here at the Ruthless Variety Program trying to get in to the studio.
I mean, Smug, you're having a tough time.
Well, you know, I'm not used to the swamp, but I make do. I make do, you know? Like, this town has always been terrible, so it's just like a new thing to make it even worse. But I think what really gets me is that it's so far been really Americans dealing with the fact, what most conservatives know, that Joe Biden is too old, not fit for the job. But it makes it so much worse when world leaders are now yet again seeing it firsthand that this dude, like, his jaw is just, like, He looks like the crypt keeper.
Yeah.
And all these world leaders are like, wait a minute, this guy's leading NATO? What the hell?
It's incredible. So let's get to our announcement. We talked last episode about the fact that we're going to be live in Milwaukee. We had a great time last time we were there for the Republican debate. Had a big game day setup. This one's going to be even bigger and bolder, fellas. Big game day setup. We're doing it with Megyn Kelly this time around. She's got a couple hours. We got a couple hours. We're going to be broadcasting live 2 to 4 Central Time. So 2 to 4 Central Time.
Real America time. And remember, folks, set that notification on the YouTube because it tells you right when we go live.
Yeah.
It's going to be live. There's no delay on this. You're seeing it live from the convention.
Yeah, and we're going to be joined. There's an all-star crew of guests. Wolf and Spaghettis have been working their tails off to try to make sure that everybody gets in and out and available to do our show. It's 4 days of programming, so it turns out it's kind of a lot of work to put it together. Sure glad that's not my job.
I mean, that's why we're sending in the Marine. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have the hardest working team in show business.
No question.
Because I've been promised that we're also going to be getting these on audio day of after the live stream airs. So if you're listening to this on audio, you're on Apple Podcasts or whatever, it's going to be a little different flow next week. You're used to getting that episode first thing Tuesday morning and Thursday morning.
Yep.
We're going to have an episode in the late afternoon, early evening on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and on Thursday.
Yeah, and we'll be live.
We'll be live.
We'll be live. So if you miss it live, I can't imagine why you would
Yeah.
miss it live. That would be problematic from my standpoint. You should probably just take it off work. And if you're going to be there in person at the RNC convention, if you're getting into this thing, come on by.
Yeah.
It's going to be a holiday. The whole convention is going to be an absolute dunk fest on Joe Biden and every
the thing.
Democrat. I mean, it's really going to be a sight to see.
I mean, I think this is going to be the most fun convention, at least of our lifetimes. I mean, Republicans
It feels
have not
like it,
been
yeah.
more on the same page. Democrats have not been more in disarray. This is going to be, like Ashbrook said, it's going to be a holiday. This is just a pure celebration.
Could compare it to what the Democrats are going to have to deal with in like Chicago. You're going to have Palestinian protesters
Oh
setting
my
things
God.
on fire.
It's going to look like Gaza.
Yeah, this is going to be the
I mean, in Chicago, it kind of already does.
that will be the 1 week out of the year where it's safer to be in Gary, Indiana, than it is in Chicago.
So we're going to be sending out email notifications. You can sign up for ruthlessrnc.com. That's ruthlessrnc, all one word, .com. But more importantly, just go to the YouTube link, subscribe, hit the bell, make sure that you've got all your notifications set, because when it pops up, we pop up, and we'll be ready to go.
If you do miss it live, though, there will be a video. You'll still be able to see it after. If you're not able to make it live, you'll still be able to watch it on our YouTube channel, just in case you're actually working from like 3 to 5 West, or 3 to 5 Eastern. I don't know why you would, but you know.
Well, there you go. There you have
2
it.
to 4 Central.
Those are the details. So coming up on this show, which we've got a lot of excitement here too, Democrats are dropping a not-so-subtle set of hints to Joe Biden about how they feel about his candidacy. Politico drops a disgusting headline on a legend, Jim Inhofe. We'll talk a little bit about that and contrast it with some of the ways that they have handled the departure of Democrat senators over the years. We coming back with a game, King of the Hill. It's been 2 weeks. You weren't with us last week, so you couldn't play him. But Kinzinger is the champion, so we're going to...
And it's going to be great.
It's going to be absolutely great. So we're going to get to all of that right after this.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But DC politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
All right, so there's a funny thing happening here in Washington, D.C., where there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between Democrats and how they want to handle it. What's quite obvious is that they didn't have a plan B here, right? Like, they hoped from a strategic standpoint that they could use all of last year to sort of elevate Donald Trump, who they thought was going to be the most flawed of a potential bunch of challengers, in large part because the second part of the plan was this lawfare campaign to try to convict him and call him a felon. And the third part was just market all of that. At no point did they think that they were going to have to discuss the relative shortcomings of their nominee or whether he had any sort of fitness to do the job whatsoever. Like, it didn't occur to him.
Yeah, I mean, like, that was central to the plan because you cannot run on Joe Biden's record. You know, the world is aflame with conflicts. You've got an economy where most Americans say it feels terrible. Most Americans have lost their net worth since Joe Biden's become president. You've got a border that's open. You've got illegal aliens committing crimes across the country. So they can't talk about what his presidency has been like. Their whole game plan was, okay, if we can just say the magic words "convicted felon Donald Trump," we win, right, guys?
But
it's all gone.
It was political malpractice because, as we've seen since that debate, like maybe the campaign people didn't know, like Joe Biden was this bad. But in all of these leaks we've seen over the last 2 weeks, it was apparent to people years ago that Joe Biden had
to people that are well outside of his inner circle.
I mean, we're talking about intel officials who like brief him in the situation
foreign
room.
leaders,
fundraisers, people who work with him every single day, just kept their mouth shut. And that is an important thing not to lose track of here, is there's been an elaborate cover-up for years on all of this.
It's such a good point because it didn't concern any of these people at all when they experienced that he might not have the physical fitness to actually be president of the United States. They only became concerned when the rest of us were let in on their little secret.
Yeah.
Because to them, it doesn't matter whether he can do the job. Can he beat Donald Trump? They don't care if the president is like, oh, he can't attend a dinner at some like G7 meeting because he's asleep. That's fine. The president doesn't know where he is. That's fine. Does it look like he's going to lose to Donald Trump? Now we've got a problem.
Look, I don't think this should stop here in July of 2024. I think there needs to be a full investigation into all the king's horses and all the king's men and everybody who worked to cover up Joe Biden's inability to do the job so that we can prevent this from happening again.
Yeah, where's Bob Woodward? You know, they trotted him out every day of Russiagate to say, to look directly in the camera and just say the line, you know, this is worse than Watergate.
Yeah.
But like, but like, where are those people? Where's the? Because I like it that the press has tried to run out ahead of it, saying, "Oh, we had no idea." No, you've been covering up for him for 3.5 years.
Like even a month before the debate, or weeks before, they were like, these are cheap fakes. Republicans are making up that Joe Biden's not fit for office. So they've been covering up. The press has been involved in it. His administration's been involved in it. And the thing is, as we've discussed, it's a national security problem, and it's been hidden from the American public.
Yeah, but where we stand today, which is so fascinating, we were talking about this in the pre-production meeting, is now the Democrats are in public having these conversations, and they're totally talking past each other.
All right, and so this is a perfect segue to our set of clips. So Joe Biden made it abundantly clear with both an interview that he did on Monday and a letter that he sent to Capitol Hill and all House and Senate Democrats saying, like, stop the debate. I'm staying in. Let's play clip 2, please, Spaghettis.
The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I not only believe that from the beginning, but I wanted to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
So he's made it say he's not going anywhere.
Crystal clear.
Crystal clear. And then Democrats have fallen over the last 72 hours into 1 of 3 buckets. The one bucket, which is usually like the people who have absolutely no electoral danger in and of themselves, they're like, we're riding with Biden. We're good. That's a smaller bucket. That's a very small, all things considered, pretty small bucket. Then you've got an equal-sized bucket of people like Michael Bennet, senator of Colorado, who took to the airwaves on CNN last night saying, he's not our best stuff. Like, we got to find something else. This guy can't run. I don't think he can serve 4 more years. Like, it's not going to work. Those are kind of equal-sized buckets. And then the rest of them...
This is the funniest bucket.
The rest of them fall into what Nancy Pelosi articulated yesterday. Clip 3, please, Spaghettis.
So, Madam Speaker, you just went through the president's record, but let me ask you about the current moment. Does he have your support to be the head of the Democratic ticket?
As long as the president it's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short. I think overwhelming support of the of the caucus. It's not for me to say. I'm not the head of the caucus anymore. But he's beloved. He is respected. And people want him to make that decision.
Is the one question you know you're going to get, and she did such a terrible job fielding it.
She gave the dearly beloved.
Yeah, like they're already doing the eulogy. He's that bad.
I mean, it's so, but like, just to take it at its core, she's like, well, we'd like him to make a decision. Did they miss the letter that was sent to her office?
Yeah.
Did they miss the full interview that he said, or like the constant communication out of the campaign? Apparently, he's making a lot of phone calls to Capitol Hill saying, "I'm not going anywhere," and their response is, "Well, he's just going to have to make a decision."
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is, so I've been giving some thought to this. I think that is extremely dangerous for the Democrats. They are so short-sighted right now. When they are like, you see that like profile and courage there of Pelosi being like, you just used to say if he's running or not, even though he says it repeatedly.
Right.
They don't, the short-sighted nature to decide, let's just put off this fight now.
Yeah.
Because what I see, my theory of what's going to happen is he's going to stay. Mm-hmm. Biden is obstinate. His wife demands, Jill demands that he stay in. Hunter demands he stays in. He's going to stay in. He's going to lose to Trump. And then you're going to see some real Democrat fighting. You're going to see them go at each other's throats like you've never seen before. Because there's a significant portion of their base that's saying Joe needs to go immediately. We don't agree with this guy at all. And that fight that they're going to have, because they're not willing to have the fight now.
Oh yeah,
is going to cost them.
It's incredibly it's incredibly passive aggressive.
It is.
It's like so fun. Like it's like they're pretending they're still having a conversation about taking away the car keys, and meanwhile, Grandpop is like driving around town all day, bumping into cars.
It's one thing to bankrupt the American people; they're perfectly unified on that.
Yeah.
But losing to Donald Trump, now that is a fate worse than death.
But her lack of clarity, and Obama's lack of clarity, and the Clintons' lack of clarity is the reason why Biden will hold on to the nomination. If they want him out, they have to come out and say it. They can't be passive
They got to
aggressive
drag
about
his
it.
old ass
They
out.
have to. But I'm not worried about it because of what Smug said. After this election is going to be the grand finale of Democrat explosion. They're going to Jan 6 each other, and we're all going to watch it.
So I think this is his Ruth Bader Ginsburg moment, right? Like during the Obama administration, for those of you who don't know or don't follow it, Barack Obama was trying to be polite to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, being like, "You really should retire. I can appoint your successor. She was older than dirt at that point, but she was the only one who gets to decide whether she could leave, right? Barack Obama couldn't fire her from the Supreme Court, and she held on, and she was ancient. And because she thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and so the first female president could replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. Trump wins, she croaks, we have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. Yep. And it's this Democrat hubris that when I'm the only person who gets to make this decision, you can't force me out. I'm going to put my elderly foot down and...
A remarkably arrogant take.
And we have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court.
In terms of like the passive aggressiveness, when it comes to Obama, I feel like he is passive aggressively trying to make his position known via like the pod bros, like the Pod Save America guys who've been just taking shots at Biden nonstop. I mean, I was thinking about this. Honestly, it would not surprise me if they ghost wrote that George Clooney op-ed.
I think that's
Why isn't anyone in the media asking
That's an amazing take. Did you figure that one out?
That's what I was thinking about.
That's full thievery here on the variety program, something that we're used to.
I was telling Ashbrook my theory, and he thought it was a good idea, too.
Unbelievable.
We should probably talk about what you just mentioned because you tried to get ahead of that.
Well, I mean, that's it. So George Clooney puts this op-ed out in the New York Times being like, I saw Joe Biden at the fundraiser last month, and he was like a shambling corpse. Like, he is not fit to serve, right? And then everything we'd been told about that fundraiser, Karine Jean-Pierre, everyone was like, no, Joe Biden was doing backflips. The guy was pulling rabbits out of a hat.
Well, because it was that clip, and it was the G7 clip that was the genesis of cheap fakes.
Yeah.
And Karine Jean-Pierre from the podium was like, these videos are fake, Biden's fine, yada, yada, yada. Turns out now 3 weeks later, you got Clooney admitting publicly that he was a shell of a man at that fundraiser.
No question about it.
And what Smug is talking about here is that George Clooney is obviously a man with several talents, okay? He's a good actor. He makes a mean tequila. But the idea that he sat at a laptop yesterday afternoon and drafted something and submitted it to the New York Times is ludicrous. It also doesn't read like a piece that was written by Hollywood screenwriters. It reads like something that was written by an operative in D.C. Who wanted to get that message out. And who was it? Was it the Pod Bros? Was it somebody connected to Obama, somebody connected to the Clintons, maybe somebody connected to Biden himself after what they've been leaking on him?
Interesting. Well, it's worth speculating about because I think the existence of Donald Trump has papered over a whole bunch of deep divisions within the Democratic Party. It is no secret to those of us who've been around that the Obama team and the Biden team aren't particularly fond of one another. Like the Clinton kind of splits up inside of that or whatever. But it's not just like the progressives versus the frontliners versus – there are these little tribes that have all been happy to hold hands and go about in party unity, provided they don't have any like significant headwinds. But now with this, all of this is sort of coming out in the open.
And it's like the weirdest beefs, too. It's like Michelle Obama's mad at Biden because she's friends with Hunter Biden's sister-in-law, ex.
Was that Beau Biden's?
Yeah, Beau Biden's wife
very
who
hard
Hunter Biden was sleeping with, which is just like, this tells you about this family.
It's like a pack
in
of
a
wolves.
nutshell, right?
It's more incestuous than a royal family.
Yeah.
So
it's incredible.
But to go back, look, I think you guys are giving George Clooney a raw shake. I mean, he played a doctor on ER. And he and Dr. Jill probably talk
Their
quite a bit.
medical
Yeah, I mean,
expertise.
they really do know.
He knows what he's talking about.
It's probably he wants Dr. Jill to really take this seriously.
I think that's probably right. So listen a little bit about this. Axios wrote something just before House Democrats Tuesday morning, quote unquote, come to Jesus meeting on President Biden's path forward. I thought that was pretty secular for.
It's the first time many of them have.
Yeah. My God.
Is that not okay?
That was terrific.
Oh, it was a good setup. You hit the ball hard there, pal. Just before that meeting, there was a swing district Democrat meeting held in where sources described a despondent gathering where there are, quote unquote, actual tears. Again, like, look, I know we're cynical and we like to laugh about this stuff, but I mean, they have literally damaged this country in the last 4 years worse than anybody could ever even imagine, whether it's abroad with all of we got war basically everywhere. None of the allies respect us. China's trying to take everything over. At home here with inflation and all kinds of domestic problems, crime, immigration, whatever, like no actual tears there.
That's the thing. They don't cry when you hear story after story of American citizen who was murdered by an illegal alien. They don't cry when they hear stories from Americans struggling to get by. Like, I'm sure everyone heard that story about a guy had his like Walmart order for groceries from 4 years ago, and he tried reordering it, and it was like over twice the cost. That won't cause these elected Democrats to cry.
Nope.
They cry when they're like, I could lose my seat.
Yeah, they're still Americans being held hostage by Hamas, but I guess we're not crying over that anymore.
No. I also just find it amazing that the entire construct of the Democratic campaign before this Biden thing came up, but they're still trying to push through it, is that they are, quote unquote, saving democracy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Like it's this big sort of thing. They're saving the American democracy as if it's fragile enough for like Joe Biden's decrepit hands to be the one that saves it. But what it boils down to is they're just interested in saving their own jobs.
That's it.
That's it.
Another thing I liked about this Dem meeting is the contrast between that one and the meetings Republicans had with Donald Trump just a few weeks ago. It was like a pep rally in the House and then a very serious policy discussion in the Senate, and everybody was pumped about what's going to happen this fall.
And again, on the same page. Like that level of Republican unity contrasted with the absolute disarray for Democrats. I mean, you couldn't ask to be in a better place.
No.
So, I mean, Biden keeps saying, I'm not quitting. I don't know why you guys are still having this conversation. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying. And they're like,
well, take your time.
We'll see what he decides.
We've got to figure it out.
We'll see what he decides.
We're a strong party. We're going to figure it out.
At some point, we'll have to just figure that out, what he decides. But meanwhile, what has been interesting, and I think, McDaniel, you may have flagged this, Politico, ever the helpful publication it's become kind of, if you need to figure out Democratic narratives and narrative building, you go to Politico and you try to see what they're saying. They had an interesting poll out that they just floated. And nobody asked for it, but they were like, poll finds Biden damaged by debate, with Harris and Clinton best positioned to win.
It's her turn. It's her turn.
I mean, if you're wondering why all of a sudden you're seeing videos of Bill and Hillary Clinton flying commercial, and then there are these photos of them vacationing out in the American West, just popping up. They're just there.
Yeah.
Well, what I noticed that I found particularly interesting with Hillary Clinton is like she definitely has main character syndrome, as the Zoomers say.
Yeah.
Like this is someone who's a malignant narcissist who has to be the center of attention at all times, and she puts out this just fucking vain op-ed before the first presidential debate, being like, "I'm the only person on planet Earth that's debated both of these people. Here's my advice."
Yeah.
And it's like, who the fuck would take your advice? Number one. You lost that debate to Donald Trump. He owned you and said you should be in jail, and then you lost the election. Number one. Number two, can you just take a step back and let Biden have the moment for a second? Why is everything about you?
She cannot do it. Just think back to everything she's been through, from Whitewater to Rose Law Firm to Vince Foster to the healthcare disaster.
How many people has she had to kill to get to where she is?
Allegedly, we're joking and laughing.
We're laughing. We're laughing.
The gun was in the wrong hand. Parody.
It is true. The gun was in the wrong hand.
I can't believe
for those of you who weren't alive in the 90s, you just Google it. You know?
Completely off the rails.
She can't
do your own research.
She can't just watch an invalid run as their nominee or hand it over to an idiot like Kamala Harris.
I mean,
she can't just watch
Hillary's
that
thinking in her
happen.
head, is it just one more, Hillary? Do you just have to make one more body and then you can replace him? This guy sounds like he wants to stick around.
She may not
I've heard that story before. People have begged for their life in front of me before.
She may not have to do a lot of dirty work on this one. But here's like an interesting way that they framed this in this poll, and I'll leave it at this. They quote the pollster. Like, this is a choice to put this in the article. I'm really surprised by Hillary's strength, he said. While some, listen to this is fucking beautiful.
So good.
While some dismiss her as yesterday's news and a candidate of the past, voters, at least in this poll, suggest that they may be open to a Clinton comeback and a ticket with Clinton as president and Harris as vice president. That's the funniest shit.
It's the funniest.
Could be even, quote unquote, stronger together. That was her fucking campaign message.
Sorry, Kamala, wait your turn.
So the other great thing about this article, like when you're reading it, the headline is poll finds Biden damaged with Harris and Clinton best position to win. So you'd think that they'd talk about Kamala Harris a little bit, and she gets one paragraph in this entire thing. The rest is all Hillary.
I wish I could
It could happen.
If this was a Zoom call between the reporter and this pollster, and the pollster just looking off camera at like Hillary pointing the gun. This guy's tied to the chair. We are stronger together. Did I say that right?
I mean, this has to be like a pollster for the Clinton Global Initiative or something.
Yeah. It's shocking,
like,
right?
It's too on the nose.
But it's a choice to put it in there.
It really is. 100%.
It's a choice.
It is.
You know, I mean, you could have just done a knockdown like this is what the poll says and like leave it at that. And they're like, no, let's entertain 4 or 5 paragraphs of this guy speculating that Hillary Clinton is not only back, she's their strongest choice.
I would love a poll of what the people of Haiti think about Hillary Clinton. Yeah.
Well, you have to get past the UN peacekeepers who just got deployed there first.
So that's another thing for you to Google.
Yeah. Google all of that.
Clinton, Haiti.
That'd be the same opinion as Muammar Gaddafi. All right, so we asked a question last week. I'm going to do this first before we ask our question this week. Who is pushing Biden to stay? Because it became evident to us that even the supporters who were like, yeah, we're riding with Biden, they're like, yeah. And then they'd put their head down and keep walking as they're chasing him Manu Raju style down the hallways, and they don't want to say anything more about it. It's not like anybody's out like, we can only win with Joe Biden. I have not heard that once. And they've had a lot of opportunity, right? So the question is, who is pushing Biden to stay? Is it Jill? Is it Hunter? That's been well established. Other political allies. And we asked you for what you thought on this. And so we've got a couple of submissions that we've chosen. We read all of these things. Let's start with a voice.
Okay, this first one is from Jim Doc, USA. And Jim Doc writes, Joe's family is pushing him to stay for obvious reasons. 1, thirst for power. 2, abject greed. 3, the need for a pardon. Jim Doc, I think, hit the nail on the head here.
Yeah, straight up.
The Dems have looked at the polling regarding potential replacements and realized that this election is lost. They will try to focus on House and Senate races to minimize losses. This is a very small font here.
But it's an interesting. I mean, the polling piece we haven't really covered as much of, but we've talked about it a little bit, and that line is right.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jim's got that nailed. There isn't, other than Hillary's pollster, there has not been anybody who has been like, oh, well, this is a runaway victory if you put this person on it. And like the first choice of Kamala is actually worse, like leaner poll numbers than Joe Biden. So, I mean, look, I think he's right.
Yeah, he goes on to say Biden's losing simultaneously takes out the extremely unlikable Kamala without it appearing that the Democratic Party had something to do with it. They can spend the next 4 years working to coalesce the party around a more viable candidate and let the deep state work its magic on roadblocking Trump wherever possible.
Jeez,
Pretty much.
Smart take.
I'm just going to reiterate. I'm just worried that as soon as they nominate Biden, they give him the blessing, and the gates all close up, and the media circles the wagons, and he's just a hero.
That's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. The question is how much damage you're doing at the center of the electorate in the course of this now 2-week discussion that doesn't seem to be abating anytime soon. Duncan, what's the second?
This one's from Cheryl Combe. Cheryl writes, the people that are keeping Biden in the race are obviously Jill and Hunter and any member of his family that profits from him being in office. Great point. You've mentioned it on the show. Next would be his closest advisors and his campaign staff. In the interview with George Stephanopoulos, Biden actually let the cat out of the bag. When asked about his low polling numbers, Biden actually said he didn't believe those and that his polling showed something different.
That is a good point.
I think they have been showing Biden fake polling to make him think that he's doing great. Ooh. That's why he's being so defiant. As far as Democratic members of Congress, none of them have a spine. They're not doing what they think is best for the country at all.
Yep. No, I mean, look, that's exactly right. Exactly right. And the funny thing is all of us have worked with a bunch of different candidates over the years. Mm-hmm. And like their mental health during the course of a campaign is something that if you're having a responsibility, a senior management role, like you got to focus on that.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you'll get a candidate that has sort of a weaker composition, shall we say, where you can't actually tell them bad news because it puts them in a downward spiral where they actually can't perform. Mm-hmm. Like they can't go out and make the sale because they're just stuck in their own head. Right? You see this with candidates who are like holding up direct mail pieces that are attacking them.
The ones who freak out.
They freak out, right? So it wouldn't surprise me at all that the fragile mental state of Joe Biden has now gotten into a point where you can't show him bad poll numbers. Like he might, that might be it.
Yeah, polling and pudding is what he gets. Here, Mr. President.
Another great set of numbers for you, sir. What do we got, Smug?
So this is from George McKenzie. George writes, who in the political class is encouraging Joe Biden to remain in the race? Every single Dem who thinks 28 would be a good time for them to run for president.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh. Wheel him off the cliff. And doesn't want to have to take on an incumbent Democrat. Not that they necessarily would, since any other candidate might also lose to Trump, but those scurrilous rats all want the easiest path to their own nominations. That's not a bad theory.
George barreled that up.
Our audience has the best takes.
So good.
I mean, I could absolutely see Newsom thinking that.
Yeah.
100.
Being like, let's just wheel this guy out, and I'll just show up looking like I'm going to save the day.
I could see Hillary wheeling him off a cliff.
Like, literally, just for kicks.
Just a long trip down the GW Parkway.
The trip to Haiti.
Oh, God. My Lord. All right, so our question, recall, we're going to the RNC. The next time you will hear us is Monday at 2 p.m. Central Time. That'll be 3 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be broadcasting live, and we're going to be in the midst of the fanfare of the Republican National Convention. So we wanted to ask you, before that, who are you looking forward to hearing from the most? Like, obviously, most people, you want to hear whoever the new vice president is going to be. You really want to hear Trump's sort of culmination address to the entire convention. Those are obviously highlights. But there's a lot of other stars in the party, some of which played out during the primary. Some are in the House and Senate, other sort of media personalities that have been surfaced as people who are going to speak there. Who's your favorite? Like, who are you really looking forward to? Because every convention has got one or two speakers that sort of elevate themselves beyond everybody else, and not just in a personal way, but a way of like framing an argument at a convention that is a takeaway.
I mean, Barack Obama would not be president if not for his speech at the 2004 Dem convention.
Would
So
not.
this is a huge opportunity for a lot of the stars.
No question about it. So we wanted to ask you that. Remember, you can comment on our YouTube page, anywhere in the comments or anywhere that you get your podcast when you leave a 5-star review. And remember to like and subscribe while you're there.
Yeah.
So for the 25% of you who are watching on your TV, it's sometimes a little bit harder. So go ahead and pause. You can pause the video in the pause menu. That's how you can like and subscribe.
Yeah, good point. Because
Real
I always,
logistical guy there.
A quarter of our audience are now watching on their TVs.
I watch every episode of,
which is a
and
big
I
deal.
only watch YouTube on TV. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, my mom does too.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. So she can see you live and in like big.
Big screen.
You want to see this guy in HD, man?
Because I'm a star.
Gosh, she hates it so much when we give you a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, she's probably going to have a comment here again. You know?
I love it. All right, so we're not done with Politico yet.
No, not yet.
Banner week for them.
This is an amazing headline. So Jim Inhofe was a storied senator from the great state of Oklahoma.
Legend.
He is, I would say, probably the primary reason why the most radical environmental ideas of the last 2 generations are not a reality in America. You know, things like cap and trade, which have destroyed our economy in the 90s. Things like Green New Deal lately. But also just, they never stop. Like the enviros are always working on ways to sabotage our economy and make us dependent on China and everybody else through the energy component.
We would have never achieved energy independence under Trump if not for him keeping a watch on American energy and protecting it from these idiots.
Yeah, so this guy's a hero, and it's an incredible career. Here's how Politico framed his passing. James Inhofe, comma, senator who denied climate change, comma, dies at 89. I mean, this is he's storied career, long storied career. He was a pilot. He was like a Renaissance, and he was an incredible human being. This is what they boiled it down
like
to.
when Al Gore dies, are they going to write in his obituary, Al Gore, who was wrong about everything in climate change, dies?
No.
Are they going to write that?
No, they're not. And let me tell you why. Because Politico, the Washington Post, the New York Times have basically become eternal word network in the 700 Club for the climate religion.
Yeah,
If
you're 100% right.
If you look at the front pages of these papers on a daily basis, they have the new lunatic fringe take on the climate every single day, leading every single story. It's completely taken over their papers.
Have you noticed even the weather? You know, they have a weather section where they'll like opine on storms and stuff, and they'll be like, well, due to climate change. It's like, what? You're a fucking meteorologist. What are you talking about?
Right. It's TBN for climate.
Yeah.
So one thing I'll point out is that the Politico Pro initial headline said Jim Inhofe, who believed climate change was a hoax. And they have now changed that headline.
Took hoax off and just put denied.
No, well, this is the headline up today. Jim Inhofe, defense hawk and proud foe of climate policies. So they did get shamed into having to change their headline.
Look at that.
And here's the thing.
The editor hated that.
But he doesn't get austere scholar like the head of ISIS.
Yeah,
So
a austere religious scholar.
Yeah.
The headline that you read actually was from the New York Times.
Oh, this was a New York Times piece?
This was the New York Times breaking story yesterday.
That's an amazing thing. So even the Times goes down that.
And folks pointed this out too. Can we get graphic 2 up on the screen? This is a good comparison. They say James Inhofe, senator who denied climate change, died at 89. They say Edward Kennedy, Senate stalwart, is dead at 77. They didn't say Edward Kennedy, who drowned a woman driving off a bridge when he was drunk.
Yeah.
And it says Robert Byrd, a pillar of the Senate. They don't say Klansman, noted famous Dem Klansman, dies at 92.
Arguably a little bit more significant than questioning climate change science.
Yeah. And so
being in the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
Or
a burning pillar of the
killing someone in a small body of water.
So here's the thing: is so much of this like climate stuff, a lot of it is, I think, tied to like mental disorder of like this kind of like doomerism, craziness. It's a cult. It is a cult. It's a death cult for these people. And then I saw a report which said that when Senator Inhofe passed away, His wife was holding his hand, and his children were there in the hospital room with him. These journos who have this brain damage, they're going to die alone in their apartment, and their cat won't even give them the dignity of 24 hours before it starts eating their corpse. So, of course, you're going to be mad that this guy passes away with his wife and family surrounding him, and folks who knew him saying such terrific things about him. That's what these journos are mad about.
Mm-hmm. Let's get one more graphic 3. Can we get a look at graphic 3? There it is. This is how they covered Fidel Castro.
Jeez.
Oh.
So for those of you on audio, Cuba's Fidel Castro, who defied U.S. for 50 years, has died.
Mm-hmm. Has died. He defied it.
Just defied us.
You know, he just
Also
executed a bunch
welcomed-
of people.
Also executed people, welcomed the Russians to try to nuke us.
Yeah.
But at least he
Like,
didn't
you
deny
know.
climate change.
Yeah,
No.
he just is defiant.
Well, that's the great thing about communism. When there's nothing to eat and there's no industry, the climate's doing really well.
Hey, folks, my friends at Americans for Prosperity are again on the front lines fighting against the border crisis. It's clear the politicians aren't going to solve this on their own. It's going to take good old-fashioned grassroots activism, and that's what AFP specializes in. Americans for Prosperity Foundation has taken hundreds of concerned citizens to see the border for themselves, turning them into informed activists. And Americans for Prosperity knows just what we need: more border agents, more walls, and more technology. That's what makes Americans for Prosperity unique. They do the tough work of organizing and mobilizing everyday Americans to make a difference. In fact, they just announced a major campaign to hold Biden and his allies accountable for the crisis at the border. Learn more at secureborder.secureamerica.com. That's secureborder.secureamerica.com.
How about a game, fellas? How about a game?
Great idea.
We
Play
have
a game.
to do it. Well, it's Thursday. That means our signature game, King of the Hill. It's back, folks.
It's back.
2-week hiatus. Smug, you're our champion, correct?
That's right. I've got Adam Kinzinger.
And I'm the challenger today, and I'm bringing in Bill Crystal.
Okay, I think I'm the bailiff, which would make Ashbrook today's judge.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's go ringside.
I've been sent in from the UN as a legal observer.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, peacekeeper of sorts. Okay.
Let's go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the red corner, fighting out of who knows where, Adam Kinzinger. And now, in the blue corner, challenging from Piero Madeire's checkbook, once again, Bill War Now, War Forever, Crystal.
Genius.
To all of our fans, you need to be able to experience Ashbrook doing that live. It's
Electric.
It's like hearing Mozart play the piano.
It's very kind of you, but you'll get a chance next week at the convention.
You will. You will. We're going to have a live broadcast of that. We'll let you know how we're sequencing it, but let's get going here, huh?
Okay. Could I please get Exhibit 9 on the screen? This is from Adam Kinzinger. He writes, just to level set, the fact that Dems are having discussions about their party doesn't show weakness, it shows strength. They aren't a cult, and they have people who feel free to have opinions. Take pride in that. The GOP is a cult where an idea gets you kicked out. Here's what's actually happening, folks. Joe Biden is saying, I am sticking around. They weren't allowed to have an actual primary. They were booting their opponents off the primary ballot. Meanwhile, Trump is considering, Governor Doug Burgum, who ran against him. So if you want to talk about, which is a cult, and I think we just got into a cult of the base that the Dems have. This is incredible. And Kinzinger being like, having a different opinion gets you kicked out. Dude, you didn't get kicked out. You took your ball and went home because you're a bitch.
Wow.
Okay.
Succinctly wrapped. We'll go into the challenger.
This is a great one. Nikki Spaghetti, can I get exhibit number 6? So Bill does sort of an homage here.
Isn't there a character limit?
An homage. Well, I'm sure he's paid for premium. He gets a longer character limit on X now.
Okay. All right.
We should have like what was it, Kissinger rule at Harvard, where he wrote like his final thesis that was 1,000 pages, and they're like, please, 300 max. Look at this guy's essay for folks at home. We're really gonna sit through this?
It's going to be well worth it.
All right,
it's an homage to the Declaration of Independence.
Oh my God.
Here, he puts the date helpfully on there.
Oh man.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for a political party to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with an incumbent, it is the right of that party to select a new nominee, as shall seem most likely to affect our safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that incumbents long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that party loyalty are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by persuading the incumbent to step aside. I mean, this is just poetry. Such has been the patient sufferance of these citizens, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former nominee. It is now their right. It is their duty to provide new guards for our future security. Their delegates ought now to be free and independent, absolved of all allegiance to the present incumbent.
Oh my God.
Okay. It's his treatise.
I feel like I'm dumber having listened to that.
Like he nailed it to the door of the DNC.
Oh.
He was so proud of when he wrote that.
He's so proud.
He's like, post.
Just sniffing his own farts.
Here's the deal on round one. Adam Kinzinger, in his take, which is further forward-leaning than any Democrat currently is offering their own party. Every Democrat's attacking themselves internally, and you have this former Republican who's sticking up for their party unity. Nobody's talking.
Just remember, this loser is 1 week removed from his own endorsement of Joe Biden before the debate.
That's exactly
right. So he's like really, his timing.
I have noticed though that a lot of the Never Trump people are the hardest defenders of Biden.
Pro Biden,
you know, because they know it's like their one last meal ticket.
Yeah, totally. They still get Christmas party.
They're the Japanese soldiers still on the island because they don't get the memos from the Dems.
So they're still Iwo Jima.
Right. So when I heard the Kinzinger take, I was like, this is definitely his round. Until when in the course of human events. You literally cannot write a more insufferable tweet than what we just heard from Bill Kristol, and therefore he wins round one.
One more thing I'll add to that. He's like, he workshopped that in a Word doc for like a day.
Oh, yeah, he was working on it.
Unlike George Clooney, he writes his own stuff.
He writes his own stuff. All right, so round one to the challenger, and the challenger leads off in round two.
Okay, let's just go with the knockout here. Spaghetti, can I get exhibit number one? Helpfully number one because it's the best take.
Oh, man.
Bill Kristol writes.
Oh, God. I love that straightforward.
Straightforward from here. 1. Biden pulls out, endorses open contest. 2. Harris starts in lead, stalls out. 3. All fall short on early ballots. I assume that means a convention.
Yeah.
This is where it gets particularly good. 4. 5th ballot stampede to Mickey Sherrill, Abigail Spanberger. Time for change and country first
Holy
ticket.
Shit.
A stampede to Abigail Spanberger.
No way.
5. New Dems crush old Trump.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it's enough to make Sorkin blush. It's absolutely incredible. And the idea that Mickey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger are some like...
Oh, those old household names.
Everybody's waiting.
Also, like the 5th ballot, if it went to a 5th ballot in Chicago, like Gaza would get through the doors.
They have to install the full Iron Dome over top of the Chicago Center. Unbelievable. Okay. Let's go to the champion.
So this is going to come with a very interesting theory. Could Adam Kinzinger actually be a double agent now hell-bent on destroying the Dems? Like he went on a mission long ago of being like, he'll think I'm one of them and I'm going to destroy them from the inside. Can I get exhibit 7, please? Kinzinger writes, if Biden doesn't win, the absolute pain will haunt the party and country for 4 years. If he stays, he must start tripling his schedule.
Oh, my God.
And doing unscripted events to have prayer.
Oh, no.
That advice is the worst advice anyone's ever provided.
I don't think it's worse than Mickey Sherrill, Abigail Spanberger. I'm sorry.
Just like Joe B. Joe. You know?
And he demands unscripted. Triple down. You're going from 10 to 4 p.m.
It's like they're just trying to kill the man.
What he needs is more unscripted.
I mean, he's a half step away from the fastball at Robert De Niro's face in Awakenings, and now he's suggesting that old man that we saw at that debate triple his schedule. He'd be gone in a month.
It's like advice being like, we should do more jump scares around the corner of hallways.
Jump scares. Oh man!
I mean, the stampede to Abigail Spanberger is just like you said it. Aaron Sorkin couldn't have come up with something like that. But I mean, the idea that Joe Biden triples his schedule takes Kinzinger's first tweet to a completely new level, and for that reason, Kinzinger wins round 2.
I love it. We're going to a round 3, and the champion will have a chance to retain his crown.
Okay, I'm ready for this one. Could I please get exhibit number 8? So this is a quote retweets a photo of Brian Stelter, who's being accused of being MAGA lately for reading news on Joe Biden's health.
The potato.
And Tim Miller, who's known for his segment The Cuck Zone on Pod Save America. He's another one of these turncoat Republicans.
Hey, if the shoe fits, dog.
Yeah, right. Well,
is that really what it's called?
That's how they humiliate these people. That's why you should never leave your tribe. They have ritual humiliation. Every episode they say, now the Cuck Zone with Tim Miller. And he's like, hi, guys.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a tough title. I would want that on a business card.
A fellow member of the Cuck tribe says here, because they were being critical of Biden, Tim Miller and Stelter. Kinzinger says, let's make the tent of democracy supporters smaller. What a great strategy the people who are already losing are implementing. The math doesn't work here, but at least you can feel pure and get retweets. Oh, that's his entire game plan for why he exists. He's not an elected official anymore.
Dude,
retweets are all he's got.
I feel the need as a bailiff to remind everybody that what this newfound never Trump Republican who spent years not being and then had to become is now criticizing the OG never Trump Republican.
There's so many civil wars. This is like Syria.
This is like it is like that. It is like that.
Like 9 groups fighting each other. You've got the never Trumpers and the never non-Biden Trump never Trumpers.
Just Taliban villages.
Yeah.
Who will also wind up being the Democratic nominee.
Okay, Crystal.
Okay. So when Bill Kristol isn't doing total wish casting, where he creates this, Sorkin-esque script for what's going to happen in an open contest on the floor of the Democratic National Convention, he likes to read the tea leaves. Let's put up exhibit number 4. So Sam Stein puts out a tweet, as reporter Sam Stein, of Biden's schedule. All of these are, official events. He's going to go do this thing, that thing, the other thing.
Yeah.
Bill Kristol quote tweets it. This is presidential travel, not campaign travel. So President Biden can withdraw from the race Friday, July 12th, then give unifying speeches as a president who's no longer campaigning for himself the next week. Meanwhile, the party can get to work setting up candidate forums. Oh. Now, okay.
Candidate forums is pretty funny.
So like my take in the previous round and this one, what I love about Bill Kristol's positioning in this whole Biden, can he continue thing, is he totally is skipping over the Kamala thing entirely. He's like, the one thing that if you talk to a lot of Democratic operatives that like is the intractable problem is Kamala Harris. There's no way of getting around it. And it's total wish casting, this idea that they're going to have this mini primary and set up all these debates and Oprah's going to moderate and all this bullshit. But that's where Bill Kristol, former Republican, is.
Well, he also is the absolute worst Republican in terms of like any sort. If he ever was like, hey, I've got an idea for you.
It's like, oh,
do the exact opposite and it'll work out.
The Jim Cramer of politics.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, Iraq
War. Wow. Also, just imagine what a candidate forum would look like in this environment.
Yeah.
Like, oh, can you imagine the like?
We keep going back to Gaza.
Oh, yeah. You thought 2020 was bad for them in that primary. I mean, this would be nuts.
That would be fun to see.
So Kinzinger brought his best today, and I feel like his third take was really hard to beat. But Bill Kristol, echoing the wishes of Democrat donors, tops it, and he is the new champion today.
And now that it's settled, honestly, who better to know what Democrat donors want than the recipient of a massive largesse from Pierre on a dime? He's like, all right, Pierre, I'll tweet that out.
You're right. You're right. It is sort of a pass-through situation.
Right.
That's right. That's Kristol.
2 L's in Bill. All right, so that was King of the Hill. Hope you enjoyed that. We've got a couple of things here from the variety side of things, which we love to do. This one is a study finds the McDaniel has pulled for. You know how he loves study finds.
It's great. It's I trust the science.
Wow.
The kids,
I don't, but we'll go ahead with it.
Listen to this. Too hot for Gen Z, : young adults turned off by risque love scenes on TV. I'm going to read a little bit of this, and I want to get some reaction for you fellas. Nearly half of Gen Zers, 43%, admit to turning off a movie after encountering a sex scene more than any other generation. According to a spicy new poll of 2,000 Americans conducted by Talker Research, 33% of all respondents have stopped watching a movie during a sex scene. Millennials were the least likely generation to let the sex scene get in the way of finishing the movie. But let me stop there. We've talked about how these folks, like, they watch movies with the subtitles. They basically just read the movie.
Yeah.
Right?
It's horrible.
And now they're turning
right.
off.
That's the correct thing.
No, it's a horrible way to do it.
I mean, you could get absolutely pancaked on this show if you're going to take that.
I mean,
hard.
that's like, you
No.
think
I like-
Coppola makes a film and he's like, I love words all over
You always
it.
want the subtitles.
No, never. Horrible take.
I mean, it's just such a bad take. I don't even know where to start with
It's
it.
good. It's good with accents. That's what I would say.
Or
If I'm watching a foreign movie, sure.
no, the different streaming services have different volume levels, and if you're flipping in between them, it's best to have.
There's also a volume button.
Yeah. So there's this
press.
thing
Yeah,
called
but
a
you-
remote control.
Often TVs come with remote controls.
Yeah, you guys.
You don't need to read the book. Like, just watch the movie.
Yeah, I don't need to read the book. But like, out of curiosity, since you guys are big subtitle guys, when a sex scene comes on, unless you're one of these 43%, what is the subtitles doing there? Is it like an oohs and ahs?
Grunting,
Groaning.
panting,
Groaning.
just like in,
Really?
in
Kissing.
brackets. Yeah.
Groaning, panting?
Kissing.
It depends on the type of
Like,
sex
how
scene.
graphic do they get?
It depends on the type of sex scene.
So if it's like, having
full on.
I mean, if we're watching like,
They're like, we want it super accurate. Can we hire Biden's bracket man? So it's like slow groan. It's like, I have lots of experience.
It's not exactly a play-by-play.
like all of a sudden your TV looks like one of those trashy supermarket novels.
No.
Okay, so what do we think of this? Like, Gen Zers are turning it off. Like, look,
So just for some people, Gen Z is the next generation. Like, everybody blames millennials for everything going wrong. Millennials are like, what are they, like 25 to 40 now, or 20
Yeah.
or 30 to 40?
30
So
to 40.
We're talking about like the 20 to 30 year olds.
Yeah.
So just so people know what,
yeah, what the
different
age
brackets are. Yeah.
But they're apparently put off by sex. They don't care for it. Do we believe? Is that consistent with people what we know about this generation? This was a surprise to me.
It's an unusual generation of people. They're a little bit odd, very different from anyone who's come before them. And so I guess I'm not surprised by any sort of weird thing I hear about this generation.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of troubling statistics. I mean, I'd like to say that it's 57% still. There are like healthy, red-blooded Americans that watch a movie in all of its original intent, and then the 43 that don't. But like, they've got a bunch of weird stuff going on. I think we need to keep an eye on this.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would say in Gen Z's defense, it depends on what you're watching. Like, sometimes there is gratuitous, unnecessary stuff where you're like, all right, okay. Like, we saw it before. Like, do we need to... Like, my wife is like that. Like, when we watch something and it's like...
I thought you were a big Game of Thrones guy.
No, I mean, like, we watch all that. I mean, that is sexual content that drives the plot.
Also, potentially a marital link.
Yeah.
But
Game of Thrones is a great show.
But I'm probably preempting what Smug is going to say. So the study also found that there's been a 40% reduction because these people are now watching TV. So this is what they're
responsible for taking the sex out?
So that this season of House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones spinoff.
What's that?
It's a Game of Thrones spinoff.
It's more nerd stuff, Smash.
Everybody's
We wouldn't
watching
know about it.
It's the most popular show in America right now.
Well,
Most
there's a lot of
our audience
nerds
probably
out
watching
there.
it.
You guys consolidate it.
It's a good show. You should watch it. There's dragons
there's
fighting each
so
other.
much less sex than Game of Thrones.
Because
Game
the
of Thrones had all
Zoomers
that-
are just like, no,
because
thank
the
you.
Zoomers are like, I don't, that's icky.
And so here's the thing: so I have a semi-serious take about this. I think this is symptomatic of a very tragic thing that's happening to this generation. Is they've been taught there's no point in having kids because the climate is going to end the planet in 10 years. They're being taught, men are being taught that if you make eye contact with a girl or talk to a girl, that you are a predator. Women are being taught that if you have children, it means it's the end of your life. You will never be able to become successful or happy if you have children. So this is a generation who's been bombarded with this horrible messaging, and they're so risk averse to everything. They're told that, like, if you go outside, global warming is going to melt you in seconds, right? So they stay inside, and they're subjected to, essentially, this is just like mental health.
Dragon movies.
Well, they're subjected to being told that there's no point in going on. You know, if you talk to these people, if you look at polling among these people, they think they're never going to be able to buy a home. You know, statistically,
Are there no more bullies in the schools?
Well, they don't get statistically, they don't even get their driver's licenses until they're 20.
Somebody's not doing their
They're
job.
being told that, like, you could die in a car
bullies.
accident. So, like, this is emblematic of an entire problem of this generation, where everything in life is a risk. Every single aspect of it, whether it's going outside, getting a driver's license, getting married, having a kid, all of that is considered a massive risk. And so they end up just living this, like, senseless, feelingless
He's
existence.
100% right about this. It
This
isn't
makes a lot
just
of
the
sense.
sex thing; it's the risk averse thing. There's a whole bunch of kids in this Zoomer. They're like aren't getting driver's licenses. They're like not that independent in a lot of ways.
So Holmes, I'll actually, I know you kind of said it as a sort of joke, but I think the bullies are now the left. They're the ones who are in charge of the schools. They're the
They're
ones
like,
who,
what do you mean you're not pansexual?
Right. But it's also, why would you get a driver's license? You're going to destroy the planet. You know, and then, you threw away all that trash. Let's all, like, look at you. And if you're not supporting, like, if you have divergent views, especially as like a young kid in like elementary and middle school, you're bombarded by all this trash. And as you're coming up.
And the teacher's on their side.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think the teachers are the bullies
in
a lot of these cases because, if you try to have a divergent view, you're just shot down. And then that's what they've come up with for the last, 10 to 20 years. And these are the kids who are now, 20 to 30 years old.
Not to mention the bizarre sexual identity jump that we've seen with this generation, right? I mean, all of a sudden you've got like half. I've seen some studies that show like half of people that identify as some sort of subsect of sexuality.
It is really tough to enjoy a sex scene when it has to start with like consent by both parties, a signed contract, and everybody saying each other's pronouns.
Hey, some people really like when the lawyers get involved.
It's like if you're, look, like if you're pansexual, like you don't know if you're supposed to be aroused by that sex scene because you don't know who the participants
are. It's
are.
all uncomfortable. Get it off.
Yeah,
get it off. I want you before. Well, I didn't quite mean it that way.
That's the subtitles right there.
Yeah, your subtitles will take care of all of that.
Yeah. Where's that Biden thing from the other day?
I'm gonna come in the overflow room. Actually, that's a good place. Why don't you pull up that headline that you looked at?
Yeah,
We're not going to get into this story, but you ought to know about it because it's out there and it's too good not to. At least
I really hope it's right. Oh yeah, okay,
briefly,
it's right here.
mention.
This is from the Daily Mail online.
That's a reputable publication.
And this is out of Ohio, my home state.
Oh, so
he wedged that in there.
So it's got to be good.
Trans woman is cleared of flashing her penis at Ohio YMCA after judge ruled she's too fat for her genitals to be visible.
It's just like
how's that real?
It's a 10 of 10.
It's like every 2 to 3 words makes this headline get fucking another level crazier.
It's a great roller coaster.
It keeps going.
How is that real?
Woman, trans, penis,
but
fat.
she's too fat for it to be seen.
Yeah, so
Flashed
good.
at the YMCA.
So judge is like good here.
Yeah. Can you imagine being defense counsel and have to explain that to your client? Being like, look, turns out you're in the clear. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. Judge is about to roast you in this.
Judge is about to say you're way too fat.
Can you imagine?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I rise to say that this trans woman is too fat to see her penis.
I mean, look at her.
Just look.
I present to you Exhibit A. I mean, but can you imagine if you're a parent and you think you're getting a deal on some swim lessons for your kid? And some fat trans is walking around naked showing its stuff to you?
Well, evidently not.
This is at the YMCA. My God.
YMCA, look how the mighty have fallen. God, it's just everywhere. All right. Well, anyway, I think we did it, fellas. We are going to see you at the Milwaukee Republican National Convention, 4 days of programming. You got to like and subscribe. Make sure you get the notifications because we're on for 2 hours live each and every day with some incredible guests, some analysis. We're going to have a lot of fun there.
Yeah, and I think we did it, gentlemen. Absolute banger of an episode, and thank you so much to the Minions. Love seeing our views go up, so tell a friend about the show, and remember, if you have not yet, subscribe on YouTube because it's more fun in video. So, until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Monday. Stay ruthless.